Hi, I'm Sandra Kayser. I'm Welfare Advisor in the Family Support Team at the Heart of Kent Hospice. I'm here with Kerin Speedy today, who is Associate Director of Estate and Tax Planning at Whitehead, Moncton. So Heart of Kent Hospice has got their Make a Will month, April 2025.
Yeah.
So we've got some questions really about making a will, and so when would be a good time to make a will?
I think there are sort of major life events, aren't there, when people sort of automatically think about it. But really any time that you own an asset of substantial value, or that maybe you have children, because there's all sorts of reasons to make a will.
Okay.
So, for example, when you have children, if you make a will, you can appoint guardians for them. So someone who's legally responsible to look after them if you die. Similarly, if you buy a property, you may buy a property together with someone else, and you may not necessarily want your share of the property to go to that other person. So in that case, you really do need to make a will to make sure that your share goes to whoever you like.
Okay.
So lots of reasons.
Okay, and so talking about life events, so what life, if I've made a will, what life event would mean that a will is not valid and I need to make a new one?
Okay, so that's really important. So say, for example, you've made a will and then later on you get married, that will is automatically revoked by that marriage. So it's really important that you then make a new will. But alternatively, if you know that you're going to get married to a certain person at a particular time, you can put a statement in your will when you make it to say that you make this will in contemplation of that marriage, and you don't want it to be revoked by the marriage.
Oh, right.
And so as long as that statement's in there, then it won't be revoked.
So it saves a little bit of time.
Yeah, so it's good planning to do that. There's also, if you divorce, that affects a will too, but it has a different effect. So it doesn't revoke it completely. All that happens is that your former spouse is treated as having died. So the will is read as if they have died before you.
Right, okay.
Which again could have consequences that you don't necessarily want to have. So it's a very good time to actually review your will and probably make a new one, to be honest.
So how would I make changes to a will that I've already made?
So if you've got a will already and there's just a couple of minor changes that you want to make, then you can make a new document which is called a codicil, and that sits alongside the original will. Or you can just make a new will, because all wills start off with a revocation of previous wills. So they say, I'm revoking anything that I've done before now, and this is going to be my last will.
So if you make a will, who do you need to tell that you've made that will?
You don't actually need to tell anyone. There's no legal obligation to register a will in this country, so you don't need to tell anyone. But obviously it's a good idea if you mention it to your loved ones, because if you say, for example, you've appointed your friends or relatives as executors, then it's useful for them to know where the original will is. And normally, if you make a will with a solicitor, they will offer to store it free of charge for you. And you would have a copy at home with your papers. And then normally their address would be on that copy. So if anyone found the copy of the will, they would know where to go to get the original. But it is useful to have that conversation with your loved ones, so that they know.
So if I've got power of attorney already in place, are they in charge of my will, or what happens to the power of attorney when I die?
That's another good question. So what happens is when you die, your power of attorney comes to an end. So whoever you've appointed as your attorney, their power stops straight away, and it's your executors who you've appointed under your will who then take over.
So who can be my executors? Can it be somebody that benefits from the will, or
it
does it
can
have
be,
to be
yes. Yes, I mean, some people think that it can't be someone who benefits, which makes life a bit difficult, but actually it can. And most commonly, if you say, for example, you're married and you're leaving everything to your spouse, most commonly you'll appoint them to be your executor, and that's nice and straightforward. But you can have it's got to be someone who is responsible to deal with your assets after you die. And so normally it's a spouse, children, or professionals, so solicitors or accountants can be appointed as well.
Okay. So if I want to make a will in the Make a Will month,
Yeah.
how do I prepare for make an appointment? How do I prepare for that appointment?
Yes. It's good to do a bit of preparation, and it'll probably depend on which solicitor you actually make your appointment with as to what they want you to do. But at Whitehead Monckton, we have a questionnaire that we ask everyone to complete before the meeting. And we have an online version or we have a paper copy, whichever people prefer. And you don't need to answer every single question on it, but it's really useful to at least have names, addresses, for you to have had a think about what you want to put in your will. So commonly what you would put in funeral wishes, whether you wish to be buried, cremated, anything else. You'd appoint your executors. You would appoint guardians if you have young children. And then you would decide who's going to get what. And that's what you put it, that's the big decision. So you can have cash legacies, you can have gifts of personal belongings, and then you can have what we call the residue, so everything else that's left over, how you're going to divide that up.
So that's like your jewellery, perhaps jewellery or
jewellery,
paintings or personal items?
Personal items, you can actually deal with those separately by way of a letter of wishes. So in the will, you can say, I'd like my executors to distribute my personal belongings in accordance with a letter that I'm going to leave you. Okay. It's not binding, but it does give them guidance. And it means then that you can update that letter without having to change the will. So over time, you can just simply write a new letter, sign it, date it, keep it with your will, and then that's updating things without having to go through the whole will update. Yeah.
So what happens at the meeting? So we've made the appointment, we've done our preparation questionnaire, so what actually happens when we're face to face with the solicitor?
Yeah, well, the first thing is don't be nervous. Lots of people are nervous about it. Please don't be nervous, because we are human beings and we're nice people, and we're very happy to meet with you, so come along. Bring your, if you've got a paper questionnaire, bring along your paper questionnaire. If you've done it online, great. These days we have to ask for ID, so it's the same everywhere. You have to remember to bring your ID. And then we sit down, we have a chat, and we talk about, your family situation and what your wishes are. And that's called taking your instructions. We take your instructions, and then we go away, draft it, and then you'll come back in and sign later on.
So how long is the whole procedure?
So the initial meeting shouldn't take any more than an hour. And then we normally say that we will get the drafts out to you within a couple of weeks, and then it's up to you as to when you can come back in and sign. And the signing meeting is normally very quick, sort of 5-10
that's quite
minutes.
a quick process.
Yes.
It can be done quickly.
Yeah, it can be done really quickly, yeah.
So if I want to leave money to my chosen charity, but also want to make sure that the family has some of the estate as well, how can I do that?
Yeah, you can do that. It's up to you how you do it. So you can either leave a cash legacy, so a specified amount to the charity, and the rest to your relatives, or you can divide the whole into percentages.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then you decide how much your charity is going to get, how much everyone else is going to get. And the good thing about anything that you leave to charity is that it's exempt from inheritance tax.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's a really useful, if you're thinking about, how much tax is going to be paid on your estate, remember that anything that goes to charity is exempt, and the same anything that goes to your spouse is exempt.
Right, okay.
And there's also an advantage of leaving a larger amount to charity. If you leave at least 10% of your chargeable estate to charity, then the rate of inheritance tax that the other people pay drops down from 40% to 36%. So that can be quite useful as well for tax planning.
So if I don't make a will, does it just go to my children, or
it really depends.
Husband,
it really
wife?
Depends, and so it's really best not to leave it to chance, because it depends on the value of your estate. It depends on how things are held. Are they jointly held? Are they joint tenants? Are they tenants in common? Do you have children? Do you not have children? But the thing to remember is that if you are not married and you have a long-term partner, they are not covered by the intestacy
Right,
rules.
okay, yeah.
Lots of people think that they are, but they're not. So in that situation, it's really important to make a will.
Okay. So how did Whitehead Moncton get involved with the Make a Will Month?
As long as I can remember, we've always participated in the scheme, and we've always had lots of clients who come in, make their wills with us, and they speak so highly of the hospice, of the charity, and it really stands out. So many people are touched by the work that you do here. You know, whether it's someone that a really close relative or a friend that they've heard of that's had help from the hospice. So we've always, for as long as I can remember, we've participated in the scheme.
So thank you, Kerin. That was really interesting and a lot of great information there, so thank you.
Thank you.
And if you would like to book an appointment for our Make a Will Month, which is in April, bookings are live now, so if you check on our website, you'll be able to make the booking there.